Despite the fact that he was married to Maria Langham, Clark Gable couldn't fight his attraction to Carole Lombard. In 1939, Gable wed Lombard, but their union was doomed to a heartbreaking end. Lombard was headed home to Los Angeles on a plane when it crashed, killing her almost instantly. Though Gable was heartbroken with grief, few know that he might have played a disturbing role in her, but more on that later. After all, Clark Gable didn't get to where he was without stepping on a few people on his way up. Stay tuned as we explore the tragic life story of Clark Gable. Clark Gable's life began with a peculiar twist. As his birth certificate bore, the confusion of illegible doctors' handwriting erroneously listing his gender as both male and female. The first 10 months of his life unfolded peacefully, but tragedy cast its dark shadow when his mother suddenly passed away. Gable's father adhered to the Protestant faith, while his late mother was Catholic. Following her untimely demise, his father adamantly refused to raise young Clark with a Catholic tradition. Eventually, Gable's father relented, juggling the demands of supporting the family and seeking a new spouse to provide maternal care to his infant son, and that decision proved to be the best. Because if there was one person responsible for molding Clark Gable into the suave and debonair figure adored by the world, it would be his stepmother, Jenny Dunlap. She took it upon herself to ensure that he received a top-notch education, dressed smart, and maintained an impeccable appearance. Furthermore, she shared her passion for Shakespeare, instilling in him a love for the bard. At the age of 17, Clark Gable discovered his calling in acting, but numerous hurdles impeded his path to success. Financial hardship plagued his family, and another heart-wrenching tragedy loomed on the horizon. When Gable was 19, his beloved stepmother passed away at the tender age of 46. Still a teenager, he joined his father in toiling in the oil fields, putting his aspirations for something more in life on hold. But Gable seemed to know that he was destined for greatness. So, after leaving his father and their shared work behind, Gable embarked on a journey to the Pacific Northwest. During his time there, a fellow worker encouraged him to reignite his passion for acting and introduced him to the captivating actress, Fran Stoffler. The two became engaged and joined a traveling theater troupe. Upon their relocation to Portland, Oregon, Stoffler introduced Gable to a local acting coach named Josephine Dillon, a decision that would change everything. As Gable began working with Dillon, it became evident that her interests extended beyond his professional development. As you might have guessed, Gable made the choice to leave his fiancée for his acting coach, who happened to be 17 years his senior. After a considerable period of grooming Clark Gable for Hollywood, Dillon determined that he was ready for the silver screen. She relocated Gable to L.A. to establish a theater company as a stepping stone for him. They officially wedded, concealing the true extent of their age difference on their marriage certificate, reducing it to a more socially acceptable 10 years. With Dillon having provided Gable with extensive guidance, she proved useful as a stepping stone, and she would not be the last, as he would soon engage in extramarital affairs with both men and women to advance his career, which included a liaison with a star William Haynes and a wealthy actress named Pauline Frederick. The latter not only secured him a role in one of her plays, but also purchased a car for him. Over time, Gable's penchant for romantic entanglements took a toll in his marriage to Josephine Dillon, leading to their separation in 1929. Gable's relentless pursuit of success led him to secure his first film contract with Path Pictures and established another relationship with a wealthy older woman, the heiress Maria Langham. Even though their age gap was a notable 17 years, shortly after finalizing his divorce from his first wife, Gable swiftly tied the knot with Langham. Are you sensing the pattern here? Following his marriage, he secured another film contract, this time with Warner Brothers. This newfound prominence enabled him to work alongside the legendary actress Greta Garbo. Garbo harbored a strong aversion to Gable, though, and criticized his acting abilities, leading to a feud in which Gable labeled her a snob. This wasn't the only adversity he faced, as Darryl F. Zanuck, a studio executive at Warner Brothers, delivered a scathing assessment of Gable's appearance, deeming his ears too prominent and likening him to an ape. It appeared that another challenging phase lay ahead for Gable to secure substantial film roles. Luckily for him, his stars still aligned, and MGM recognized the potential in Gable and sought to bolster its roster of handsome young actors, thereby signing him. This marked the beginning of a promising chapter in his career. He made his debut as a leading man in Dance Fools Dance opposite Joan Crawford, who had specifically requested him for the role. Crawford was renowned for her advice to other actors not to become romantically involved with co-stars until after making at least 3 films together. In a deviation from her own counsel, Crawford and Gable embarked on a passionate affair, and they went on to share the screen in a total of 8 films. Irrespective of their marital statuses, they continued to blur the lines between business and pleasure on set. In 1931, when Clark Gable portrayed a charismatic gangster who seduces Norma Sheriff's character in A Free Soul, he captivated audiences. Viewers were enthralled by the film, resulting in a deluge of fan letters sent to the studio. Gable quickly ascended to become one of MGM's top stars, appearing alongside the era's most illustrious actresses. His affair with Joan Crawford continued its on and off course, reaching a point of disturbing contention, leading one gossip columnist to dub it the affair that nearly burnt Hollywood down. Louis B. Mayer, the head of MGM Studios, could no longer turn a blind eye to the situation and issued a stern threat to terminate both Gable and Crawford. Gable may have loved women, but not over his career, so he obliged. For the 1932 film Red Dust, producers initially cast Joan Crawford as Gable's leading lady. Still, in an attempt to quell their affair, MGM ousted her from the project and replaced her with a blonde bombshell, Jean Harlow. Meyer's intuition proved correct once again, as Gable and Harlow displayed remarkable on-screen chemistry, garnering adoration from audiences. During this period, Gable encountered a dilemma. None of the film projects in development at MGM piqued his interest. Consequently, the studio paid him $2,000 weekly to remain inactive. Once more, Mayer devised a solution, loaning Gable to another studio for a romantic comedy entitled It Happened One Night. Despite receiving Oscar nominations for both the film and its 2 lead actors, doubts persisted. Claudette Colbert, the female lead, didn't even attend the award ceremony. Clark Gable was nominated for Best Actor, a distinction he ultimately won. Gable had labored in Hollywood for more than a decade, struggling for recognition, and the Oscar represented the culmination of his efforts. When a young fan admired the award, Gable graciously presented it to the child, emphasizing that the honor held greater significance to him than the physical trophy, marking a pivotal moment in Clark Gable's career. In 1937, Clark Gable starred alongside his old friend Jean Harlow in Saratoga. However, their time on set swiftly transformed into a harrowing ordeal. Harlow's health began to deteriorate mysteriously, often leaving her so weak that Gable had to physically support her between takes. She eventually took a break to recuperate, and when Gable visited her in the hospital, he was met with heartbreaking sight. Gable's heart shattered as doctors delivered a devastating diagnosis. Harlow was in the early stages of kidney failure, and her condition swiftly deteriorated. Tragically, after that, she shocked Hollywood when she passed away from uremic poisoning, or now more known as acute kidney failure. She was heartbreakingly only 26 years old. With the film 90% complete when Harlow passed away, the studio insisted on this completion. Gable, doing his best to fulfill the commitment, struggled during scenes in which he acted without Harlow, by his side or alongside one of her body doubles. He described it as being in the arms of a ghost. Despite the heartache, Harlow's fans flocked to the theaters to catch one last glimpse of her, turning the film into a massive success. Clark Gable had a magnetic presence on and off screen, and all too often this extended with chemistry. Despite his ongoing marriage to Maria Langham, there was one specific co-star that he completely refrained from pursuing in particular. Some say he truly fell in love with her, but wanted to spare her of his womanizing ways until he was absolutely ready. When Gable appeared alongside Carole Lombard in No Man of Her Own, he made no advances towards her. Given his reputation, this surprised her and everyone else expecting him to make a move. However, years later, when Gable and Lombard reconnected at a ball, he was unreserved in expressing his feelings. In fact, He invited Lombard back to his hotel room. She delivered a legendary response, asking, "Who do you think you are, Clark Gable?" And from that moment on, the pair remained inseparable. Gable and Lombard didn't attempt to conceal their romance, but not everyone supported their relationship. While it was evident that Gable's first two marriages were pragmatic unions of convenience to women who could offer him support during his struggling years, his second wife, Maria Langham, had assumed he would eventually come back to her no matter what. While she tolerated his numerous affairs in the past, this situation was different. After his Oscar win, he no longer required such assistance from anyone, and the tabloids began to portray Gable and Lombard as a couple, positioning Langham as the villain rather than the victim. Having supported Gable through the early stages of his career, she wasn't willing to relinquish her position as the spouse of the world's most renowned movie star just like that. Gable pressed her to proceed with a divorce, which only intensified her resentment. Langham attempted to matters by initiating divorce proceedings in California, a move that would have required Gable to wait before marrying Lombard. But eventually, she relented, and the courts granted Gable and Langham a divorce. During a break in the production of Gone with the Wind, Gable and Lombard finally tied the knot, a mere 13 days after Gable's divorce. He sure wasted no time. And with Lombard, Gable could truly be himself. They shared laughter, played pranks on each other, and had similar interests. While she was familiar with Hollywood's social scene, Lombard also didn't mind indulging in Gable's passion for activities like hunting. They appeared to be a perfect match. But not every fairy tale concludes with a happy ending. But we'll get back to that. Thanks to Lombard, Gable considered reading Gone with the Wind, and he initially hesitated to play Rhett Butler, but he couldn't deny that he was the perfect fit for the role. Moreover, he sensed that he was in good company from the moment he stepped on the set. Despite the potential challenges of creating a 4-hour historical epic, Gable and the rest of the cast thoroughly enjoyed their time working on the legendary film, experiencing a refreshing dose of good, clean fun. Gable delivered his best performance and established rapport with everyone, particularly Hattie McDaniel. Sadly, not everyone treated McDaniel as well as Gable did. Upon Gable's arrival on the set of Gone with the Wind, he was immediately taken aback. He discovered that the restrooms were segregated by race, prompting his outrage. He insisted that the producer rectify this issue, threatening to abandon the project unless it was rectified. Then, when the studio planned a grand premiere for the film's release, Gable expressed his dismay upon learning of the location. The premiere was scheduled to occur in Atlanta, which at the time was still segregated. The studio's mistreatment of McDaniel incensed Gable to the point where he informed them that he would boycott the premiere. However, McDaniel implored him to reconsider. He watched with pride as McDaniel went on to win an Academy Award for her remarkable performance. The two remained lifelong friends. By 1941, many American celebrities had been inspired to contribute to the war effort, including Lombard. She was so fervent in her support that she sent a letter to the president volunteering her husband for active duty. The president replied suggesting that their efforts could be better utilized within the country. Lombard enthusiastically began organizing and participating in bond drives across the country, which Gable heavily encouraged and supported. It was that fateful January 1942, Lombard had traveled to her home state of Indiana to participate in a bond drive. She was returning to L.A. with her mother and her press agent when their plane crashed, resulting in the loss of everyone on board. Upon receiving the news, Gable rushed to Nevada, where friends had to restrain him from ascending the mountain where the crash had taken place. When the search team finally located her body, he tearfully exclaimed, "Oh God, I do not want to go back to an empty house." Subsequently, he continued to reside in the Encino home that they had shared for the rest of his life. While Gable may have eventually moved on paper, his heart remained forever entwined with Lombard. Following her untimely passing, Gable finally enlisted with the United States Air Force and became part of a unit equipped with a camera that filmed aerial gunners in action. He completed 5 missions, even attracting the attention of the enemy. Upon returning home, Gable sought solace in the company of actress Virginia Gray. The two had an intermittent on-again, off-again relationship prior to Gable's marriage to Lombard, and they began spending a significant amount of time together, leading tabloids to speculate that Gray would become the fourth Mrs. Gable. One day, to her dismay, Gable married Lady Sylvia Ashley in 1949 out of the blue, leaving Gray blindsided and heartbroken. The decision appeared to be so unexpected that when Gable asked a friend to help organize a private wedding ceremony for him and Sylvia, the friend inquired, "Sylvia who?" Lady Sylvia Ashley is the complete opposite to Carole Lombard, who was known for extravagant spending, enjoyed lavish Hollywood parties, and did not share any of her husband's interests. Before long, their incompatibility began to strain the marriage, and Gable demanded a divorce shortly after their first anniversary. Although Ashley was devastated, it was evident that Gable was not, and he reportedly confided in his friends that he must have been inebriated when he proposed to her. Sounds like a rebound gone wrong. After his iconic performance in Gone with the Wind and his honorable service in World War II, Gable's frustration with a studio that had catapulted him to stardom grew. The breaking point came with the film Agambo. From the moment Gable stepped onto the set, he clashed with director John Ford due to Ford's mistreatment of Ava Gardner, and Ford openly insulted Gable's appearance in front of the crew. Gable also fell ill on set and had to take temporary leave to address a painful infection. But it was also on the set that Gable discovered that his much younger co-star Grace Kelly shared his passion for hunting. After they embarked on a hunting trip together, their affair began. When their production moved to London, Gable arranged for a hotel room where they could continue their relationship, but it didn't last much longer. After Grace Kelly's mother visited her in London and expressed approval of her daughter's involvement with Gable, the actor realized that he had become too deeply involved too fast and ended their fling, leaving Kelly devastated and a trail of broken hearts wherever he went. In 1954, Gable reconnected with an old flame who had recently divorced her third husband. Her name was Kay Williams, and they swiftly rekindled their romance. They eloped with only a few friends and family members present. This union was different from his previous ill-fated marriages, and he appeared happier, much like he had been with Lombard. Yet, just like that tragic marriage, this one was not meant to be either. Williams tragically suffered a miscarriage shortly thereafter, and although Gable remained a devoted stepfather to her children, he desired a child of his own. They kept trying, and finally, in 1960, Williams became pregnant once more, but this does not end well for Gable. Because in 1960, Gable began working on the Misfits alongside Marilyn Monroe and Montgomery Clift. The film would eventually achieve iconic status, but the journey was long and arduous. The Misfits was filmed in the blistering desert heat, and despite his age, Gable insisted on performing his own stunts. 2 days after completing filming on the Misfits, Clark Gable suffered a heart attack. Many speculated that he had been in poor health during filming, as his voice had drastically changed and the insurance company had only approved his casting after he quit smoking and drinking for a week. Gable ended up in the hospital with his devoted wife by his side. Initially, Clark Gable's condition appeared to be improving. One night, Williams left his side to get some rest. A few hours later, a doctor awakened her to deliver the devastating news. Gable had passed away. He had suffered a second heart attack, and his body couldn't endure the strain. Williams was 4 months pregnant at the time. In March of 1961, she gave birth to a son whom she named John Clark, Gable's only son, whom he never had the opportunity to meet. Making the Misfits had been a living nightmare for Marilyn Monroe, but she found a crucial ally on set in Clark Gable. Throughout the remainder of the production, Gable was always there to support and guide her. So when gossip columnist Luella Parsons alleged that Monroe's problematic behavior had enraged Gable and was to blame for the star's untimely demise, it could not have been farther from the truth. Regrettably, the vicious gossip took its toll on Monroe, and she ended up blaming herself for Gable's passing. The Misfits ultimately became the final film for both actors. Monroe passed away in 1962 due to an overdose. Per Clark Gable's wishes, he was laid to rest alongside the love of his life, Carole Lombard. During his lifetime, he was often referred to as the King of Hollywood, and it was easy to see why. Unfortunately, the title passed away with him, and many believe that the golden age of Hollywood ended with Gable as well. But his legacy endures to the timeless characters he portrayed on the silver screen. While the curtains may have fallen on his remarkable career, Clark Gable's name will forever be etched in the greatest film history. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more facts on old Hollywood figures.